Are you looking to join Cycling Men of Leisure for one of our rides in 2025? We've got a few things on our schedule.
That's right. We'll be attending Big Bragg and also the Bourbon Country Burn.
Big Bragg is in Georgia and Bourbon Country Burn's in Kentucky. Both places are going to be absolutely beautiful. We're going to have teams for both of those events. If you're looking to join us on our team, just send us a message. We'll tell you what to do.
So come on out. It's going to be a good time.
Absolutely.
Well, it's time for Road Adventures with Cycling Men of Leisure, the podcast for cyclists who understand that riding is not just about getting to the destination, but the experience along the way. Now, here are the original Cycling Men of Leisure, Adam and Michael.
Welcome to Road Adventures of Cycling Men of Leisure. Happy New Year on behalf of myself and my good friend, Mr. Michael Sharp.
Happy New Year, everyone. Adam, Happy New Year. Hope it started off really well for you.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I found out where Big Bragg 2025 is going. So that was exciting.
Georgia. Yeah. And I spent my New Year's in Orlando.
Hey, man, a couple weeks we are going to be together in Orlando.
Yes. I'm spending a lot of time in Orlando the next couple months. That's okay. I'm looking forward to our trip because we're going to be golfing. We're going to be eating well. We're going to be drinking a little of the good stuff here.
Oh, yes.
Maybe have a cigar or two. We're attending Podfest, 2025.
But it is about podcasting in your defense.
Yes, Podfest.
So this show is going to, not to gloss over what you just said. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about golfing. And I also am going to be in Orlando multiple times, twice with you. And we're taking the show on the road. We are packing up my studio. And we are going to be able to not only record the YouTube channel, which we're going to get into in a little bit. We are also going to be able to record high quality audio. And we are taking the studio, literally unpacking it down and taking it on the road. So pretty excited about the content that we're about to get. And we're also going to do some cool stuff. We're going to record on the golf course. So
that'll be fun.
We can see how well or unwell we both do, which I haven't had a golf club in my hand, to be honest, since August. So it's probably not going to, no, maybe.
It's been longer for me, but this will be the thing. And there's Michael on the 8th green. This is his 12th attempt at trying to sink the ball.
Lucky for us, it's resort golf, and the course is really wide open. So that's the best thing. People don't realize that, but usually resort courses are real wide, especially Disney is real wide. And they're like, "Hey, I did not so bad," and everyone else is like,
they gotta make you feel good, and it is the most magical place in the world. So
absolutely,
you gotta feel good about yourself when you're done.
As much as we're going to both be paying in tea prices, it better be magical. Well, obviously for you and I, the big thing was recording the release of Big Bragg 2025. Franklin was amazing coming up with his quizzes and distilleries and breweries and cigar.
It was he nailed our show right on the thing. He had trivia. He flipped the script and made us try to answer those questions. Pointed out breweries, distilleries. I'd say Franklin knows us pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. It's been really exciting, and I'm excited. If you have not signed up, and you're saying, you know what, I think I am going to sign up. We still would love to welcome you to Cycling Men of Leisure. Real quick, what does that really mean? Big perk. The huge perk is you're going to get a free jersey because we already know we have 10 or more. Franklin does a wonderful thing where he has a marketing plan that if a team can get 10 or more, that they get a jersey to design. There's some requirements. Northside Hospital has to be on there. Bragg has to be on there, which understandably, they're the one paying for it. Makes total logical sense. in
Wait,
Northside Hospital.
So that's
Go ahead.
so that's the big perk, is what you're saying.
The jersey would be one of the big perks. Sure. I mean, if you're
I thought we discussed this earlier, and I thought we were going to say that I was the big perk.
well, this is listening to in 40 countries, and we actually
fine,
got
you're right. The jersey's a bigger perk than I am. Okay, I can live with that.
Our platform gives us, like, as most apps are doing, like Starbucks told me, this is what you normally order. No kidding. I didn't need you to tell me that. I'm the one who orders it. But all these apps are doing that. Even FanDuel, I saw today, FanDuel's like, this is how much you bet. I'm like, I don't want to know that. Don't tell me that. So
at least it's not saying this is how much you lost last time.
Well, it didn't tell me my biggest loss, but it did tell me my biggest win. And it told me it happened on the 16th of January in 2024. I'm like, oh, you mean the rest of the year wasn't big win days? So,
Nope.
I thought the Super Bowl, actually, some of those kind of prop bets and parlays I thought would have been better. But anyways, our platform for our podcast told us 40 countries, we are in the top 25%, which is still really cool. It's 2 years in a row for us, and that's really exciting. How many downloads and how many minutes? Now, few minutes here and there we have edited out just because of a mistake or something
not
we
many,
said.
Though.
No, not a lot.
And it has. We haven't really edited out content. We've edited out like one day the power went out in my house, so we had to obviously edit that together and things and different stuff like that. But we really have never edited out any content or anything like that. We just kind of let it organically flow, and if there's a mess up, we just go with it.
Full transparency, when we recorded the show, obviously we recorded it before the New Year's with Franklin. We actually had a technical issue recording that, and we were able to patch it together. And that just makes, not that you and I are great editors, it just the software allows it to really come together and snap together nicely. So, but truth be told, we had well, actually I do edit well. I'm just kidding. But we actually had a little technical snafu. We were able to fix it. So, but you're right. We don't edit out a lot. We find that just having a normal conversation, which leads me to, you are not going to hear listener spotlights today. Now, this is just the only episode that I know of that we're not going to do it. We will pick up there. We will answer. But we are about to record together in person, and we think it's going to be a little bit better for the audience that we do the listener spotlight in person. And if you've ever heard our show or record when we're in person, sometimes it can be a little bit more humorous because we're fighting over the board, or he's like, oh man, this was better when you're when you're 90,000 miles away. So listener spotlight is not going away. We're just taking a break just for this episode. We're just going to have a deep dive of 2024 and how we felt it went. And with that, let me just kick it off. How do you feel the YouTube avenue of Road Adventures of Cycling Men of Leisure went for us?
I think it went well. We started it obviously this year, and I think it's went well considering we didn't really know anything about putting content on YouTube, and it was video and not just us, speaking into a microphone, that type of thing. So I'm very happy with it. And I was concerned that it was really going to hurt our numbers and stuff, but it hasn't. I thought, well, then maybe a whole bunch of people will just flip over and start doing that, and our numbers will go down. But we're in the top 25 again, 2 years in a row. So very happy with it. And I think it provides another avenue for the people that, well, I don't do podcasts, but I will do YouTube, that type of thing. So what do you think?
I think it has some pros and cons. The pros are, some people like to, you were in radio. You did it for a living. Mm-hmm. And how many times do people listen to a DJ or the radio host, and then all of a sudden you meet that person and you're like, wow, that's what they look like? And I remember growing up in Southern Illinois, and the radio station was WCIL-FM. And I remember they had this DJ, and then he was at a mall, and I saw him, and I'm like, wow, that guy looks nothing like I thought he looked like. And so the idea that you could jump on YouTube and take a look at us and see who we are and I think that's really cool. I'm more the one of, and each of us bring our strong suits. You bring the history,
Sure.
you bring the listener spotlight items to be 100% truthful. I'm more the guy behind the scenes who's messaging people and communicating with people, and that's great. I mean, you need that's teamwork. You have to have that. So, I do get some messages where, hey, we watched you on YouTube, and I know those people I've had conversations used to listen to us. And so then I'm like, well, do they drop off? Well, Scott Garwick, our good friend, wrote me today, and he said, I was at work at the bike store today, and even though I watched it on YouTube, I listened to your last 3 episodes. He's like, I was literally laughing out loud. And so, having that relationship where some people watch us and then listen to us or go back and forth, I think that's a huge perk. And so sometimes we do bring visualization into the show. If I could speak English, like Franklin made a mention that all 3 of us were wearing our brag hats the last time we got together. And can you picture the word brag on a hat? Sure. Can you picture blue? Sure. But anyone who was at Big Brag 2024 knows exactly that they went to the trailer. Those brim hats were there. And so they could jump on and see that. And if you hadn't seen those, then you could jump on YouTube back and forth. And I think bottom line is, I think that there's some pros and some cons. The pros are what I just mentioned. The cons are, I really just hope that the idea of the podcast was we become so obsessed, you and I, or anyone who probably runs a podcast, you become obsessed with numbers, how many downloads, how many, all of the stats and how long did someone listen? And so with YouTube, we don't get that data. So sometimes you can look a little bit, but what I mean is where the podcast, I can tell you, hey, on this episode 47, of the 350 people who listened to it, 87% of the people listened all the way through. And then it kind of gives you and I some feedback, and that's gratifying feedback where sometimes you and I have thought shows were going to be amazing. And then afterwards,
not so much.
I'm like, well, they were great to you and I, and that's okay too, because you and I enjoy doing it. We're not going to be buying Lamborghinis off of doing a pod. We're not Joe Rogan, so we could buy toy Lamborghinis, but so anyways, that instant gratification and getting those numbers, and then some episodes you and I have done, we're like, yeah, it's not our best work. We'll get it out there, and then people just keep resharing
Close
it. And
the door, yeah.
And I'm like, I obviously don't know what you should know what your own customers want. I think in general we have what they want, but sometimes the episode goes back and forth. So I'm still glad that we're doing it. We have increased some of our camera quality. We are now using 4K cameras and putting some of the better, like the Franklin release episode, it was 100% 4K. Now that depends on what device you're looking at. If you're looking at a tablet that only brings in, a 720p, you're not going to see that. I mean, obviously, but if you had it on your television, Apple TV, and I'm not paid by Apple, I wish I was, but if you had an Apple TV and it's 4K and you have YouTube, you will see us in all of our glory in 4K. So I like it. I think that in my opinion we continue. Otherwise, if you see the YouTube channel go away, but no,
it's a lot like movies though. When they come out with a movie idea, goes around Hollywood for years and then they get their casting that they think is good, and then they have to switch people out, and they get into production and things change, but at the end, the people think, oh, this movie's good, this movie's awesome. I mean, whatever.
Right.
And sometimes it comes out to be really awesome, and sometimes it's like, can't believe they wasted years producing that. I mean, it's like what we do. I mean, when you said that, I'm so thinking it's like, yeah, there's been just episodes that were like, this is going to be epic. And then it was just like flatlined, dead on arrival. And then there was other ones. It's just like, man, that's just the worst bit of junk we've ever thrown together. And people are like, oh, we love that. And so it's
get
like
the
any type
paddles.
of creative endeavor when you're producing content. Sometimes you hit it right on the mark, other times you don't. But it's always funny.
It reminds me of Shawshank Redemption. I mean, now that it's obviously a classic, but when they first said it came out, they were like, the Shawshank what? And nobody, it didn't do well in screening and didn't do well, and then of course now it's, I mean, one of the best
it's a
movies
classic,
it's ever made. So,
Andy Dufresne
crawled through 500 yards of the most fouling beep. Where's my censor button there? There we go. That's an interesting thing. What about, we got this new board for 2024, all kinds of fancy toys, and we were able to put our Christmas sounds and our Halloween sounds. Do you think the sound effects, I mean, I listen to some other podcasts in my life, and they don't use some of the sound effects. I'm like a little kid when I do it, but do you think that adds something, or should we make a change there? Or?
I think it adds something. I think it adds some fun. I mean, it just gets into the kind of personalities that we have and the bantering back and forth. I will admit, sometimes the little 12-year-old Adam comes out, and I think he's like, oh, look, the light up. They're lighting. Push them. Yeah.
I love buttons.
Exactly. So
Reminds
I think
me of the
sometimes
movie Big, when he's in the limo.
So I think sometimes, your enthusiasm goes crazy, but I think it adds some fun to it. At least for me on this side of the board,
Okay.
It adds some fun.
I know that like listener spotlight, like even when Franklin was like listener spotlight, I go, you mean? Oops.
Wrong button.
Oops. This is why I don't do this on a daily basis. Listener spotlight. But okay. I was just curious of that. How do you feel?
I mean, really, there should be a lot less censoring of that Michael guy because he's really cool. Exactly.
I'm sorry, you said you wanted more censoring. So, for those of you who don't know, Michael has an autistic stepson who's a wonderful young man, and he found out that on the show I sometimes will censor or beep Michael, and he said he wanted to go to McDonald's on a vacation, and Michael said, no, we're not going to. Max goes like, beep, beep. Like, yes,
we're not going to McDonald's. And then just before I said McDonald's, he's back there and go, beep.
Turns out I heard you went to McDonald's that day.
Yeah,
so.
Probably so.
All right. Well, I was just definitely curious about that. How do you feel about the episodes coming out every 2 weeks? I know that some podcasts put out an episode weekly, and I personally don't see how you and I could do that. I mean, with your family and your obligation of your daughter and homework and then the editing that it takes, sometimes I'm wondering like how those people do weekly episodes. So,
I think 2 weeks is perfect for us.
Okay.
You're right. I mean, we have lives and things like that, and when summertime gets here, you're on the golf course a lot, and we all have other things going on. I don't think it would be as much fun if we were doing this every week, honestly.
It would seem more like work. And sometimes,
exactly. It's like, oh man, we got to produce another. This gives us 2 weeks to put it together. Sometimes we record a little early. Sometimes, we're right on the Saturday before getting it finished, but it gives us plenty of time. Plus, I think it adds to the content because I think if we were doing it every week, we'd just be like,
yeah.
So, how's things in Michigan go?
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to be doing it every week,
Gotcha.
and I think it gives people enough content who enjoy listening to us. But it's not something that it's like we're jamming down their throat every week. So
plus, cycling is kind of I want to say very repetitive. I mean, like like Bragg has come
down,
up.
Well,
down,
left,
exactly.
Right.
This is where I need the censor button, I swear. But but like Bragg comes out, I mean, and obviously Franklin, and I'm so glad he explained some of his international rides and how they're scouting more and stuff. You and I need to stop talking about it and go overseas and do it.
Let's do it. I think that would make for a great ride and some great content.
But when you look at these larger rides, like RAGBRAI is repetitive. I mean, and maybe not to the same areas, but somewhat to the same areas. But Big Bragg comes out, and so for us, you and I are watching the calendar, and having that 2-week break to me is like, okay, we can try to fit in these extra interviews. Like we're working on a few different interviews, and I have no problem saying what they are. We're trying to get Bike Virginia on. We're trying to talk to the people from Padres and cycling. And we're working on those, and we've got some commitments, and we can't wait to bring that to you. And so, soon you and I are going to be together in person, and I can't wait for the content. So I was just curious of how you felt about the 2-week, and we have done special episodes like the Franklin, like the Big Bragg. We've done it for other things as well. And I think we're looking at possibly, we'll see how this works. So if someone holds me to it, but we're going to try to live stream like a party for the RAGBRAI release. And so we're going to kind of practice that when we're together in person soon and do a rough draft of that to a private server. And so we are working on some cool stuff, some new stuff. But I think the 2 weeks is probably good. And to be honest, the different times of the year, like in Michigan right now, I could probably do an episode with you every other day. It's boring and there's not a lot going on, and football is winding down. I mean, so only so many games, but sometimes I just don't want it to ever feel like work. I already have a job. You already have a job. You have a family. I have a wife and house projects I've been doing, but every now and then you and I both are like, oh, how about tomorrow? Oh, how about tomorrow? Or one of us has been sick, or one of us has something going on with a parent. And then all of a sudden it gets to Friday, and then it gets to Saturday, and the show comes out at 4:00. And I just start to feel that anxiety feeling of, oh my gosh, are we going to make the mark? And then that feels like work. I just couldn't imagine doing that more. I just was curious how you, you and I have had no notes for this episode. So
none whatsoever. Just honest conversation is what we're having in this episode. We always have honest conversation, but we didn't script anything out. We don't have any notes. We're just organically.
No, and in full transparency, I mean, you and I usually do a little pre-show where a little prep show where we talk about listener spotlights. But to be fair, you do not give me the answers. I want to be clear on that. But then we do talk, and we have an outline. We use Zoom whiteboards, and I mean, we want
we hit the high points. We need to hit this and this, and
we wanted to have good content for everybody. So, what about? I would love to pick your brain about our show is cycling-centric podcast. I mean, hence the name Road Adventures, which is our adventures.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm just jumping the gun. I'll let you finish.
All right. The idea of Road Adventures is our adventures of cycling men of leisure, and then we turned it into a podcast. And I mean, we talk about cycling, all things cycling. We also mix in our love of distilleries, and both of us, I think, truly enjoy going to distilleries and cigar bars. And we went to that Weston Missouri cigar and whiskey thing. I mean, I think there's a genuine, enjoyment by both of us. But my fear is, where I'm going down this path is, some of the cycling events, we just had a show where we talked about some of them are going by the wayside. But a lot of the stuff that we do is just leisurely based, whether it could be cycling, whether it be golfing. I used to fish. I haven't fished in years. I mean, I used to make a joke, if you're too drunk to fish, you might be a redneck, but I've been too drunk to do a lot of things sometimes. So, I'm curious how you feel about like taking the show in a direction of not just cycling, but maybe mixing in, and let me give you the floor.
On behalf of Adam
and Michael,
we both want to say thank you
for your support.
Well, we started this off as Road Adventures of Cycling Men of Leisure. And I don't think we envisioned it to be cycling centric.
Right.
But it was more about our adventures when we go do things, when we go do leisurely activities. It has really kind of morphed into just kind of heavy on the cycling.
Right.
But when we originally envisioned it, I think we were really thinking about, we can talk about anything. We've been up to the Henry Ford Museum and we're doing this and we're doing that. And so to me, it was really envisioned to be more centered around leisuring.
Gotcha.
The act of spending time away from work and chores and other responsibilities, and kind of our adventures there, where are we going, the people that we're meeting, that kind of thing. Now, we spend a great deal of our time together cycling, so that has really became a center point. And we do, cycling men of leisure. We are cycling men of leisure, but we do other things. So,
right.
I would like to see upcoming year us to branch out a little bit more, still talk about cycling and that kind of stuff, but maybe bring on some other leisuring type stuff. We play golf every once in a while. We love the distilleries. You and I have both liked the history stuff, visiting historical places. One place that comes to mind is that mill that we visited, that old water mill. I think it was on Ragbri a few years ago. And it was all based on water, and we actually got to stand inside with all the belts going, and
that was, I really, really regret not recording more of that. That was such an amazing experience. I mean, just to be there, and when they fired it up, and I've thought about that to this every now and then. I'll think about like, man, I should have, especially since now we do this, we could have thrown that in, a piece onto the. You just never know that. But
I got some video of it.
You did?
I did. I'll have to dig it up. But I mean, just stuff like that. So I know we've talked to Phil Collins, Phil Talks Whiskey, having him, he's been on a couple of times. We'd like to get him on again.
Yeah.
So I would like to expand out, keep it heavy in cycling, but also talk about our other leisuring type activities that we enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, because, I mean, kind of you and I had a little bit of a conversation, but then of course I go off into my world and I'm driving to work. I know you got 13 stairs. I got 13 miles. And so, I know you're going up and down. I get it. But,
up those stairs, that's, and then there's a turn.
I know.
Halfway up.
You got to be careful, man.
I know. You'll break a hip or something doing that.
I start thinking about stuff like that, driving to work, like, okay, well, the show's coming up. And then sometimes we've come up with some really good stuff where we're like, hey, why don't we do research on this? Like when you did the ladies' cycling history, I thought that was amazing. I mean, and if you haven't had a chance to listen to that, maybe we should re-air that. I mean, I just saw this thing where they said, well, maybe some of your old shows you should, talk about a little bit and say, hey, we aired this, and then re-put it out, and then add a little bit of the content to it. So I think that's something we can do as well.
Great idea.
Because you did some really deep dive research on ladies cycling and, shrink it and pink it. And I have never forgot that since you mentioned it. And, where they made the frame smaller and turn it pink and didn't even change the,
didn't change anything. It's like, let's just take men's cycles, men's gear, shrink it down smaller, and we're going to make it pink and we'll sell that to women. And so, that would be a good subject to revisit as well.
Yeah. So there's some things there we can definitely do, but then sometimes I'm like, well, gosh, what can we talk about cycling for the next 2 weeks? And that's why we reached out to our audience, what we call our leisure community, and we've said, hey, what do you want us to talk about? And we have had some things behind the scenes where people have mentioned, and we've had some great interviews. But I think we could mix it into all things leisure, and just kind of. I'm glad to think that I'm glad to hear that you're thinking the same thing I am, where, the compliments that you and I get is the banter back and forth.
Yep.
And by the way, if you've not ever met us, this is what we do in public. I mean,
this is not like acting. This is nothing. This is just the way Adam and I, his relationship is. We're constantly bantering each other, and yeah, it works for us. So
It does work for us. And I think sometimes it's, I'm always a kind of a person when we're in public where, if you and I are having a conversation and I know that someone is intently trying to listen, you wanting a show, I'm going to give you a show. And that's the kind of person I am. So if they're like, those two are heathens, I'm like, I'm going to give you a heathen comment or something. I mean, not mean spirited. I'm not a mean spirited guy, but I'm more of a comedic guy. So if
you're feeding the story or feeding their ideas.
Oh yeah. I'm not afraid to do that. So, and that's just who I am. And sometimes I make, different comments, or sometimes when we're editing the show, by the way, I do this thing where I always go, cycling of leisure. And Michael always says, I can't wait for you to do that on the air.
Yeah,
you got it.
Yeah,
you just got it, buddy, right there. So, I just wanted to, I'm glad we could just have this conversation and have it open to our audience and to kind of get an idea where now it's 2025. We're on season 4, technically, not just technically, but I mean, we did not do a full, what you would call a full season in 2020, 21. But the way that podcasting works, you have a choice. So if anyone doesn't understand how seasons work on podcasts, they can work a couple different ways. If you listen to something like Dateline, major, obviously, production, they have their regular season that in lines with the school season, which is that, come out in the fall, stop in the summer, a lot of repeats, and that could be a season. Or you could do a continuous calendar year where it starts in January and ends in December. And so the way we started, I think, around October or November of our first year, and then
November.
And so that became season 1. And even though it was only a month later, then season 2 started. So we're starting season 4, and
wow.
Excited about it. We're going to maintain the YouTube. We think that's value add. We're going to add to the show. We're always trying different new things. I'm just happy where we are. I'm still enjoying it. And I was just curious where you possibly saw us going in 2025, or anything that you can pinpoint or.
Hey, Adam, I need a Coke.
Sounds good. We'll be back after a quick break.
Yeah. I think when we started this adventure, I think I really saw us as we're pretty determined individuals. And I think in my mind, I had it that, we're going to do this thing called podcasting, and we don't really know anything about it, but we'll figure it out. And you know what? We probably won't have a lot of people listen to us, but I think you and I will have fun for it, and we'll give it. And I honestly, deep down inside, I think if I look back, I think I'd have probably said, you know what? We would give it a year. And then at the end of the year, I didn't really think that we were going to have, a community. I didn't think we were going to have that many listeners. I thought we would just do it. It'd be fun for us. And after a while, it's like, hey, those 7 people are not going to miss us if we decide not to do this anymore. So this has really advanced. I certainly did not see a YouTube channel coming in there, and I didn't see us being on, the other platforms that we're on either. So in looking at the fact that we've been here, we're going to start our 4th season, is just mind blowing to me, because I honestly didn't think we'd ever be here. But what I would like to see really coming up in this new year is expand out our platform a little bit more with kind of the leisuring attitude. Still, we're going to talk about cycling. We're going to talk about rides. We're certainly going to do rides, but maybe branch out and do a few more segments on other things within the leisure community. And I think moving forward, I would like to see us do more like little quick, YouTube segments that we just throw on like our Facebook and things like that. A lot more like when we ride, it's like, hey, it's more this morning. We did some of it when we were in Michigan.
Yeah.
I'd like to do a lot more of those. I would love to, do like some simulcast stuff of like the route announcements, like in Iowa. I think that would be a lot of fun. And just, take the microphones with us more and utilize them more, talk to more people and that type of stuff to kind of expand out our story. So that's where I would like to see us next year. And honestly, next year at this time, I'd love to see us both steading here and still going, you know what? We really like to do this, and still having a big base of supporters that say, yes, continue doing it.
That's great. I mean, we now have professional travel microphones here in this case.
That's right.
So they are battery operated and clipped to your shirt. We can record anywhere. They even have, you don't know this yet, but I've even attached the windscreens to them. So if you look, you can see that they're already attached. So I tested this the other day. I went hiking and it was winter and it was cold, and I purposely took the microphone, and I'm sure I look like an idiot, or more than normal anyway. And I basically was just pretending like you and I were podcasting. I was in the middle of the woods, so most people, probably 99%, no one even saw me or heard me. But if there was that one or two persons out there who saw me, they're like, that guy's talking to himself.
Crazy guy walking through the woods talking to himself.
And I was impressed. I mean, I hiked 6 miles. It was windy, and I purposely listened to it here with my headphones on, and I'm excited to be able to I think this is going to open up a lot of doors for you and I. So I think like when we do things like go for an old fashioned and we just have a general conversation, maybe we only take 30 seconds from the 5-minute conversation, but something we could share on the show. So I'm excited about that. So,
and I do want to say one thing.
Yeah.
I'm not a technical guy, but you are big into technology. So you are really our tech guru. I mean, that's like your biggest, strongest suit that you bring to our team is your technical knowledge. And when you don't know about tech, you will jump in with both feet and do the research and figure out how to do it. So I just wanted to say thank you, because you are a big reason why we sound and we look good, is because you're that really tech orientated person. So
and I appreciate that. Yeah, no, definitely enjoy it. And I do, it's like taking apart an engine and figuring out why it works and why it doesn't work and how something is supposed to work. That's why that time when our friend Tripp said, "Hey man, you got this weird sound." Like for me, it was like, that was like the tickle, like they call it tickling the wire, for when they're trying to get people who, when they bug their phones, they want them to talk about something. That was Tripp tickling my wire, buddy. He's like, "You got this noise." And that was it. I was on a mission. I was going to find it. And it turned out it was only on Apple Podcast there. Everything else, I don't think it came up on. And I hope, anyways, it's gone. And let's make it that way. But yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I've enjoyed it so much. I really have got prosumer. I'll use prosumer word gear now, and boards and video switchers where, if you're watching on YouTube, I can do this and move a camera here and move a camera here. We've got graphics and inlays, and so it's a lot of fun. I appreciate you saying that. But you bring a lot to the show too, my friend. I mean, listener spotlight. You go. I mean, you even get some people who complain that you're not making the guesses as easy as. That's the whole point. But I
don't want you just to be able to look it up. Yeah.
I could use ChatGPT on my phone and use your, so people have asked me, like, do you do deep dive research after he gives the hints? I said, God, this is going to sound horrible. But to be honest, after he gives the hints, I'm worrying about editing the show. I couldn't tell you what he said unless I went back and record, listen to it myself, which I do. I listen to the show as a listener. I enjoy recording it so much with you that I actually, I hope it doesn't sound narcissistic, but then I get to enjoy the show. And I usually do it for two reasons. I do it for research to make sure that if there's some sort of issue, problem, concern. But I also want to enjoy what you and I are talking about. So I kind of do it both ways. So I look forward to, on the books, we have a lot of in-person gatherings together, whether it's golfing, coming down for your conference. I'm coming to your place for my conference. We'll have Big Brag. We've got Bourbon Burn. I mean, so there's so much stuff for 2024. That's why I'm super excited that taking the show on the road. And I think with the equipment that we have, we're going to be able to. I remember the first time we were Bourbon Burn and we were outside, and this just shows you. Inexperience and learning. We sat on a picnic bench and at the Kentucky Horse Park campground. And we had these microphones, and even though we had the windscreens on them, we later listened to the studio. Both of us had like this, like, oh my, yeah, exactly. Like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. But then what we did is, in full transparency, we re-recorded the show in the studio and tried to make the best of it with a little bit of sound effects and everything. But that just shows you the inexperience. But now with the equipment that I think we have, we could actually pull it off. So you learn, and that's kind of the fun for me, is learning how to pull the media together. And I was fully transparent with you. We made a mistake on the I'm not going to say what it is, but we made a mistake on the release with Franklin, with Big Brag 2025.
You fixed it.
And because I had done some research, I heard something, and I went back and I used a tool, and we were able to fix it. So, long story short, I'm excited to say where we are with Road Adventures of Cycling Men of Leisure, and I look forward to what 2025 brings us. And I just want to wish you a Happy New Year, sir.
Well, thank you. And like I said, if the technology was up to me, we would have one of those big 1980 camcorders setting up, and some mic systems, and maybe some reel-to-reel, that type of thing. So
nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. Absolutely. So no, I appreciate it. I look forward to our already, I think, 5 events.
Yeah.
5 times we're going to be getting together this next year. And we're still looking for another ride. So there may be 6, maybe 7, who knows? So that'll be awesome. But I enjoy doing this with you. And hopefully we can continue doing this for a lot longer.
Well, that sounds great. Until after this, believe it or not, I'm going to edit this up, and then I'm putting all this stuff in boxes, and we are taking Cycling Men of Leisure on the road. So I will see you in person for our next episode, sir. I look forward to recording in person with you.
Orlando, here we come.
Orlando. You know what? It is a great day for a bike ride.
It is indeed, sir.
Thank you for coming along with Adam and Michael on Road Adventures with Cycling Men of Leisure. If you have enjoyed this, please subscribe to the show on the podcast app of your choice.
Hey, we just wanted to remind you that we've got some really cool products at our jersey and our swag store.
That's right. You can visit cyclingmenofleisure.com. At the top of the page, you'll find our stores page. Click there. There's 2 QR codes. The one on the left has a J on it. That's the store for the jerseys. The one on the right is just a swag store. Has all kinds of different items. Kind of customizable. You can kind of make the swag the way you want it. If the QR codes are giving you an issue, don't worry. Underneath, there's 2 buttons that you can click on. Thank you, and have a great day.